Hi, Sebastian. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Thank you for being part of this conversation. And,
Yeah.
of course, we know you. Could you give us a sense of who you are and what you have been doing?
Well, this is now a very profound Freudian question. Who am I? I have to say, let me just start with this. That point of view, who am I, has changed in the last 2 months drastically and dramatically because we all have more time to think who we are and who we want to be. So, but I am currently the music director of the San Antonio Symphony. I'm a traveling conductor. I've worked on all continents in my profession as symphonic and operatic conductor. And yeah, I'm an artist. I'm a traveling artist. Sometimes I'm a clown. Sometimes I'm try to inspire. Sometimes I'm a coordinator. And but most importantly, I think I fulfill the important mission of making the arts part of our essential life and bringing that to the broadest public we can imagine, and that's what we're working on as artists.
So you are not American, and like me, you live in two different realities. Where you're coming from, where you are, right?
We don't define with nationalities as artists. We cannot, because great art is not nationalistic.
Okay.
I think the whole world claims Beethoven their own. It's not that he was born in Bonn and therefore he's only good for people born in the Rhine region, which would make me the owner of Beethoven. But so I think this is the most dangerous part in our life, that we start putting art in national pockets. It has been a tendency recently too, but I think every artist on this earth is an immigrant. Every artist is for some reason, or becomes for some reason, an immigrant at some point in his life.
So can you elaborate a little bit more on this idea? You know, I am also an artist and coming from Italy.
Yeah.
And as a human being, I know that my heart, part of me, belongs to a different country. And
yeah.
Also my art is more universal. But of course, being Italian, it affects my art. But I would like, I love this. So could you articulate this a little bit more? Because in today's world, this point is quite important and powerful.
Yeah, I mean, of course, this is the interesting part. Of course, I'm German to the roots in some way. You know, I'm born and raised in Germany. I'm very thankful for being born and raised in Germany, because I don't have to learn this very, very difficult language. I just speak it, you know. The other thing is, of course, it comes with an array of cultural heritage that I'm grateful for, and this will never disappear. And I think that's what defines us as people. I mean, you cannot have an argument with an Italian about food or wine. You know, those are things that you like. It's like having an argument with a German about poetry, or, you know. So in a certain way, this defines us. But as I said before, and through my life, I become more and more of a traveler of the world, and of actually a citizen of the world. And for me, this is very important. And everywhere I go, it changes me, and it opens my horizon, which is probably the biggest problem right now, that physical traveling is not possible anymore. And to what degree will that, and hopefully that will change, but that has an effect on all of us as well.
How is the coronavirus impacted your work practically, but also emotionally?
basically it has immediately eradicated, I would say, 70% of this year's income and work. It just disappeared. So instead of traveling around the world doing what I do, I'm now here at home and have time to think. So this is a very direct influence. And I've been talking to many artists because I'm working on another project, and I've been talking to many artists that are my close friends and I've performed with. With every single one, when I have a conversation, it's never under 1 hour of a nice and deep phone conversation. That is something that is actually kind of amazing, and I'm very grateful for. So I'm not isolated or socially distanced at all. Actually, to some degree, I'm way more in social exchange than before, especially on the level of exchange. I'm not going to parties, but let's face it, most of the social exchange and parties is relatively superficial. When I pick up the phone or schedule a meeting like we have now, it is about substance. It will never be about small talk. Small talk has disappeared from my life, which I'm actually grateful for. So to that degree, it has drastically changed my life. On the other hand, I'm planning ahead. The planning for the future happens. I had 2 meetings today about programming for next year. A festival, an important festival in Denmark just disappeared. That was one of the latest cancellations. I was supposed to conduct the opening concert, and Denmark was thinking about actually using that as a tool to be one of the first to reopen and make it a red carpet event and a big thing. And I thought to myself, oh my God, that is an occasion. I might be the only conductor in the world who conducts a live performance. Of course, it did not happen. But now we are planning for next season and what we are doing. So it's forward moving. It's forward thinking. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the time of reflection, I have to say. The time of reflection for an artist is extremely important. And I've talked recently to about 15 or 20 friends in the last week, artists, soloists, touring artists who lost a lot. Every single one of them became extremely creative and grateful. And also reflecting on the necessity of whether we always have to run around and be in the hamster wheel, or maybe a lot of the stuff is not really necessary. I was talking to a pianist in New York today who just recovered from COVID-19 and said that was the worst nightmare he went through. So please don't take it easy. It is a severe thing, and it's not the flu. It is much worse than that. And for him, it was a life and death experience. He's healthy, he's young, but still, it's a life and death experience. Nobody needs to go through this. I think we all agree on that. But experience in New York right now, which is the city that never sleeps and runs around all the time, and then see how it quiets down, and all of a sudden you start thinking, is that all really necessary? Is the more always necessary? And I think we come to it is a reset button that we press now. And that reset button has negative effects, of course, because we're losing things. But while that happens, it also reevaluates a lot of stuff, which is very important for artists. A lot of artists take sabbaticals because of rejuvenating their creativity. Now, every artist on the world is forced to do that. It's tragic what's happening, but we talk about that. What are the impacts really on the arts and why are they there. But on us personally, I think it's also a big chance of rejuvenating our creativity.
So resetting, this reset button.
Yeah.
Which is a very important and is a recurring theme in my conversations.
Yeah.
What do we reset it to?
Well, we reset it within ourselves. We reevaluate what is important, what is not important, how we become better artists. If you are a creative artist, and if you have the fire and desire burning inside you of being a performer, you will not lose that. I know that a lot of people suffer and go in Great Depression, mostly also because of the financial restraints. And while organized musicians, like orchestra musicians, have more of a lobby, you know, because they are working as a union and they're working as a team, traveling artists don't have that lobby and that union and that unionized, organized world so much. So for them, it's a big struggle. It's a very big struggle financially. But what I'm saying is that it doesn't make a pianist a bad pianist, or, you know, because he will stay at home practicing and learning new repertoire and trying new things. And that process will continue, even if you just reset and relax for a month, I think that will continue. So at the end of this, we all come out eager to perform. And that's the point where we need to see a future. And we need to build on that. And it's up to us to do it, not onto politicians to decide what it looks like, or onto board members of organizations to decide what it looks like, or on funders to decide what it looks like. It's on the artist to determine what it will look like. I think that's very important within the guidelines that we live in, but we have to make the propositions.
So these propositions that you're talking about, could they come also from what you mentioned a moment ago, that some of the artists you have spoken with have become very extremely creative? And can you share with us some of the creative solutions that some artists may are experimenting with in this moment? Because this is really a moment of incredible experimentation and testing.
Of course, and I think I'm getting a little bit dark here. Or maybe I should sit. Let me put on the light a little bit, so I'm not looking like Nosferatu.
Okay.
Let me see if that works.
It's mostly the light is coming from your left-hand window.
Yeah, I can actually.
If you can darken it a little bit more, it's better. Yeah.
So now I'm a little bit more. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it should be better. Yes. Okay.
No. So there is immediate creativity to make up for what you lose financially too. So I talked to a cellist who invented a very important tool on an instrument and got a patent for that, and is very excited about developing this, and this could be actually, could be a major thing. It's a tool that is essential and that enhances the sound of the instrument and helps performing and helps artists around the world if it works, So he's doing that right now. He also has a festival that he wants to take place, and he was the first one to buy ozone generators that disinfect spaces, performance spaces. I mean, 400 people. And, it's an artist who has an idea like this. We should disinfect the place, so make sure that the virus load, if there's a virus load, it can be also, disinfected, and so the virus load goes down. This is, I think, quite amazing. So that's one person. He didn't seem down or depressed at all. Then we have this. We have our Zoom meetings. A lot of people teach that way now. with all the restraints and limitations that has, no question. It has a lot of limitations, but it also has a lot of opportunities, because I actually can talk to people that are on totally different continents and use this medium to communicate and to teach people that I wouldn't reach otherwise. The main limitation is performance. We are working on a project of doing something very ambitious with the San Antonio Symphony musicians, performing, you know, a work that requires 200 people to perform together. Well, it's actually not together. You know, I have recorded a video of me conducting dry with nobody, which is like totally strange, you know, of a complex piece of music, imagining they are all there, the 200 people are all there, and I just use my imagination, and then they have to follow individually to put it together, which is the opposite of conducting, which is an art of communication. It's not just what I say, but it's also what I hear. So it's a reaction. So I have to anticipate a reaction and imagine a reaction. It took me days to get that right. And I have no idea what the result is going to be. So we are creative with this, but it has its limitations. We need the direct contact with audience, and we need the direct contact among musicians. There's no question that this can ever be replaced. And it shouldn't.
Right. Right. So, and this is also a problem with any type of performance. A performance becomes alive when there is a relationship between the performer and the audience. Not in this moment, we can do a Zoom performance, that there is a relationship between the artist and someone watching, but the artist cannot get the feedback from the audience that is necessary in the moment of performance. And we cannot substitute that. What can we do now? I mean, if this is to last longer than we want, are there solutions? Are there ways? Because this is one of the conversations I'm having with artists. For instance, in theater, we are thinking with some artists that are developing a festival. Well, if the audience cannot come, we go to the audience, and we go on the street and perform for them that are on the window, right? And then we're gonna go from place to place, and you know, there are so many things that ideas that people are bouncing back to recreate this relationship between the performer and the audience.
I think on a small scale, that is very possible and very easy manageable. On the other hand, you have to explain to me, frankly, how can there be an order to open movie theaters, right, to the audience, and say that is totally fine, but it would be completely outrageous to have somebody perform live on stage in a concert hall. I don't get that, because for the audience, actually a movie theater is probably way more problematic than a concert hall in terms of airspace. It's artificial air, you know, so if those filters are not clean, they basically keep pushing the virus load over every single cycle back into the hall. Actually, it's more dangerous to be in a movie theater than it would be in a space like the Tobin Center with an enormous space of air, you know. Right. So it's almost like outdoors in comparison, right? So there, I think what's happening right now is like taking we are measured very, very differently, you know. You have to explain to me why Home Depot can be open, why car dealerships can be open, but the lady who sells, has a little boutique who could let in one person at a time has to shut down. I don't want to be too political, but I have the slight suspicion that great corporations are much in advantage for reopening sooner than the individual people and small businesses. The arts will always be the last to be reopened. And that is very problematic. I think we should not be foolish and run into opening, and because we don't want to be blamed for spreading a virus. But the craziness when everything closed down, the craziness I have seen here, that everything closed down and the hand car wash on Broadway stays open, but 5 people work on your car and basically contaminate the whole car, and then you're driving it. You think this is safe? Of course not. So I think we also need fairness in the discussion, so that art organizations are treated equally to other businesses in terms of regulations. We cannot have a different level of measuring this. I think we as arts organizations, we could actually do a lot, but it would require discipline. And I think when I look around the world and we compare the spread of the virus, and now I'm, for example, I'm in constant exchange with South Korea, because frankly, that's where I'm going in September, and I'm going to stay there for 4 months. Luckily, this is my next work, and luckily, this seems to be the only country that's actually doing something in September. Actually, they're adding concerts as we speak. It is discipline in the population. There is no discussion about wearing a face mask when you go out. There is no discussion about having a Corona app on your phone and tracking virus and tracking infected people. Nobody sees that as a limitation of their personal rights. And when I say South Korea is extremely sensitive to human rights and to personal rights. You know, the history of Korea explains it as very well. You know, they also had a military government, went into a democracy. They went through a lot of phases in their relatively short history as a divided country, Korea. I've never seen more political protests and demonstrations than in Seoul. Every single Saturday, it's massive and it's very organized. So people express their freedom they have the freedom of expression, but nobody sees that as a limitation because it's necessary to keep the normal life alive. And you see the results. And here, you know, if somebody has to wear a face mask, they come with a gun and say that they don't want to do this. So I think we just have to be reasonable if we want to go forward. We have to be reasonable. But actually, I find it more dangerous to silence the arts for a long period of time, because we are actually a voice of sanity and a voice of common sense and a voice of future and of depth. We need to contribute. We need to keep contributing to the society, and we need to be heard. We need to be heard.
So you and I know very well that arts is the solution to this problem. And one of the aspect of artists that at times we are strong with our art, but we are a little bit timid when it comes to playing the political arena. And we think that we cannot speak because otherwise we're going to get the people that in City Hall that give us some money not to, you know, this is the reality. Now let's talk about it.
I will answer to that.
Yeah, I know.
Shy.
So and at times we are too timid to say anything because then we are not going to get the grant that we want, or maybe we're going to have some challenges, or maybe we can get some of our donors to think that, oh, you cannot be political in your art because, you know, that's not what art is. Can we talk about this? And because this sense of, for me, as an artist, my rights are not being considered because I cannot speak because I'm afraid. Or
Look, I tell you something about this, because for 10 years, I've been struggling with this. You know, for 10 years, I tried to be diplomatic and find a balance, what to say and what not to say, and whom to please and whom not to, pardon my language, piss off. I get this. And it's a sensitive thing. But if you are a generous donor, and if you believe in the art form, I don't really think that an artist who expresses his own opinion will scare you away from a donation because he just says what he thinks, especially when it's reasonable, not offensive, and in a certain way bipartisan. And I think if you respect those rules, I think you should always speak your mind. Art is political, no matter what. I'm surrounded by art here. Okay, in the visual arts, so this is a painting by Kathleen Petiare, who is one of the most respected and interesting Aboriginal artists in Australia. She died a couple of years ago, but you can see her at the Tate Gallery in London. And the fact that it's an Aboriginal painting is already political, right? We don't even have to go into the suffering of the Aborigines to see that this painting, by hanging there, is a political statement. Kevin Rudd was the first PM to go and apologize on behalf of the Australian people to the Aboriginal community. Now we go to local artists here in San Antonio. This is a political piece. Right. I bought this from a very young student at UTSA. She had an exhibition on one of the Open Fridays in Southtown. I found this piece. I found it amazingly creative. I immediately bought it. So what does it show? It shows her mother and her grandparents and her uncle. And these are the immigration pictures of a Peruvian family coming into the United States. So it's a political piece. What does it say? It says how I interpret it. But that's the beauty of art. But it is political. It is not just a pretty picture. And that's why I'm interested in looking at it. Even an abstract painting, as I said, like the original piece, is a political statement. A symphony like Beethoven's Eroica is a political piece. Of course it is. Very political. There is no unpolitical art. Can you think that any Shakespeare piece is not political? Even Romeo and Juliet is like, it's not the love story. That's not the important thing, that two people love each other. The important part of Romeo and Juliet is that this hatred between two entities is so in the way. And of course it's a metaphor for the bigger picture. It's not the little community in Verona that we are interested in. It's way more than that. So why should we not be political? Why not? Of course we are. And we should not be shy of being political. And being political doesn't mean that I have to express an opinion about party politics or, no, but we express what is right. And I think the most important thing for us right now as artists is not to be shy that we might lose the funding, but to come out and say very, very clearly, no, it is not okay that the first thing on your agenda is to cut arts funding. No, that is not okay. It will have a tripling effect on everything in our community, and it will be devastating. The results will be devastating. But because let's face it, the amount of money that is spent on the arts is very, very minimal. And just a drop in the ocean of the, in terms of our GDP, it doesn't really, is so much cost. But it has a lot of effect on the GDP because it produces money. Art also generates money and wealth. So we should also not forget that. So we have no reason to be shy.
And with this more bold standing of the artists that we hope that comes because of this situation, because of the reflection that you have been mentioning and talked about, how can the artists be the solution to this problem? Because I really believe that because we as artists, we create new worlds, we always have a problem that we have to solve. So we are great at solving problems. We experiment, we test things. I mean, we are hands-on, but we are never seated at the table.
No, look, the symphony went through a lot of trouble, right? A lot of trouble. It's an open secret, you know. It's not even a secret. It's public domain. I mean, the last task force of the San Antonio Symphony did not have a single musician or artist in it. So you create a task force to find a solution for a product that actually no one is really part of. You hire outside consultants and all this, but you're not really listening to those who are really involved. I had a 10-minute interview with a consultant on that. In 10 minutes, you cannot say a lot. So what I'm saying is we are always seen as actually the problem because we cost money. We are seen as the problem. We are not seen as the solution. And I respectfully disagree with that. I think, but it's also our passiveness when it comes to the problems of funding, because we are constantly afraid we're going to say the wrong thing, and we're going to, you know, turn up people, and it happens. It happens. It is right, and a lot of people are not very good in measuring what they have to say. But I think if we are a little bit more, we tend to beg for money,
right,
instead of ask for what we deserve. I'm sitting here in Monte Vista, which is a beautiful neighborhood in San Antonio, gorgeous historic neighborhood. My property tax is skyrocketing. It's actually killing me. I have to say, the mortgage of my house is not the problem. The problem is my property tax that kills me right now. What am I paying for? Police, school district that I'm not even using, streets. But why is the property tax so high? Well, I'm close to the Pearl, I'm close to the Tobin Center. But does my property tax support these institutions? No, it doesn't. Why is that the case? I would be a much happier property tax payer if I knew that even $100 or $150 out of this enormous sum, I don't even want to mention how much it is, but you can imagine, I don't know where you are, but in Alamo Heights, it's not very different. But it doesn't go into the arts. Why not? Why is it such a radical socialist concept if you think supporting the arts would be a socialist concept? Would it be? Is it really I don't think so. I think it's quintessential. And if artists don't lead this discussion, and we think that our funders and our should be having this discussion, we will never get anywhere. We are always in a weak position of asking for money, and that needs to stop. We don't have to ask for it. It's part of our infrastructure. It's what is needed for the city. It should be part of it. It should not be something that is a luxury accessory. We need to stop that thinking. Essential infrastructure. I mean, it is, and now I had the discussion with a board member saying exactly or along these lines. No, we should not accept that our fundings are constantly cut. We should not accept that. I disagree. But you know, what can we do if 6,000 people line up at the food bank? Well, this is a totally separate issue. It is a totally separate issue. That doesn't mean that people don't have to eat or don't have Medicare or suffer. That doesn't mean that we cannot afford art, because as we know, it takes very little money to fix that problem. And the other problem is a deeper problem in our society that needs to be solved. I totally agree on. But frankly, I don't think that food banks are a solution to that problem, because they don't go to the root of the problem, right? And now I get very political, but I think actually, it is actually an alarming sign to a society that this is so necessary right now. But it should not be used against arts organizations. And here's the fundamental thing in arts funding. The arts funding is a philanthropic, in the United States, is a philanthropic philosophy behind it. It's philanthropy supports the arts. Philanthropy is a wonderful wonderful word, but we have to be realistic. It disappears. The philanthropes of the past are not there anymore. Also, because charity is more necessary in our societies, because our societies are not able to cope with the necessary social problems we are facing that are very, very grave in a country that is getting richer and richer and richer over the years. But we are not solving these problems. So charity competes with philanthropy. And for any corporation, they will shift towards charity because in the public eye, it just looks more necessary. And I agree, I get it. I totally agree. I don't want to compete with the food bank. As a matter of fact, actually, the San Antonio Symphony musicians donate to the food bank and drive donation for the food bank, so we support that. I also don't want to compete with the children's shelter because there is no comparison. But please, don't use that problem as an argument to not fund the arts, because those are completely different things, two completely different things. And we are infrastructure, to make it very neutral. We are essential creative infrastructure of a city. We're the creative class, and a city without a creative class is not a healthy city. Because if you cut out the creative class, you have scientists, technocrats, and bureaucrats. Those people are important, but they need the creative class to find a balance in the dialogue. And unfortunately, I think we are not underrepresented where decision makings are happening.
So you talked about moving forward. You move forward by going to South Korea to work and to plan other projects. So considering what you have been talking so far as one of the parts of the system that has failed us, and that now, because of COVID-19, makes this failure so evident. How can we move forward, changing the narrative? So what do we have to finish to destroy in a way, to then rebuild something else, in your opinion, as we move forward and we place the art in a place, in a position of contributing more actively to the social, political, pedagogical, and artistic discourse of any community?
I think we have to change the narrative of what the arts are. We are not the entertainment for the rich and beautiful. We are not elitist organizations. We cater, yes, sometimes we cater to a niche of our population, because that's, even in a hall with 1,800 people, yeah, it will only be 1,800 people that night, even if it's sold out. I get it. And if you at the Grab, in the black box, yeah, it's only 200 people. But these are very important people. And yes, the arts are an intellectual way of communication, always be. And it caters to a more intellectually inclined audience, which is nothing elitist or negative. I think the word intellectual is nowadays used in a negative sense. I think we should also get rid of that narrative, because it's not correct. We need to define what the arts look like, and we need to demand what it takes to stabilize the arts. And we need to stop catering to always being dependent on corporation, of the of the personal decision of a head of a big corporation, what he wants to do with his money. But it needs to be made clear that a certain amount of profit is also for the arts, because it's for the streets, it's for the hospitals, it's for the schools. The arts are part of this, and not an additional asset. A city without theater, ballet, symphony, opera, museums is dead. It has no soul. We are the soul of the city, and the body of a city can only work if it has a healthy soul. And therefore, we have all the right to demand it, and not constantly accept cuttings and being turned away and being talked down to. I think begging is not the right approach here.
Right.
And we need to stand up for this, and we need to fight. But look, it is very interesting what COVID does. The society has already changed. Basically, what's happening right now reveals very clearly where the deficiencies in that system are. Can you imagine sending out checks to everybody in the United States? That is 3 months ago, you would call it radical socialism. Frankly, I have to say the way these terms are used here are very wrong, as we all know. I mean,
right.
Communism and socialism, the definition of that is very vague and comes with very wrong ideas of it. Denmark is far from being a socialist country. It is based on a very healthy capitalist system, right? It has a great social net. I mean, I grew up in West Germany. Our sister country, East Germany, was a socialist country. Communism, by the way, is only something that can be reached through socialism in the philosophy of Marx. So that word we should take a lot of cautiousness with. And so let's not always mix that into our daily language, because it's very irritating. It's just used to provoke people in the wrong sense. I also think that actually people who think along the more social lines should be very careful with using the term, because it's overloaded with negativity. But now what we are doing as a nation is the necessary thing of equality, because the virus does not discriminate, though actually it does. It does, because you and I are privileged.
Right.
We can work from home. The guy from CPS who was cutting the trees in my back alley, he broke a window, you know, in my garden house. And he came and knocked at the door and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I broke your window. I want to repair it." And he was super nice. Of course, he was not wearing a mask. Of course, he's not protected. And then I thought, oh yeah, why does he not wear a mask? But I put the mask on, I talked to him, and I thought to myself, well, for him, nothing has ever changed. He goes out and he's on the line out there every single day working like nothing has changed and puts his own life at risk by doing this for us. So it becomes a social problem because, of course, the infection rate among these hard workers will be devastating. And where is their lobby? Right. You know, where is their lobby? So it is a social problem. It will be a social problem. And I just can't warn everybody, you know, if we don't work with a system of solidarity here, we will face big problems, major problems. We need to create unity now. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or Democrat, certain things are questions of humanity and not of political games. So the arts are an integrative factor here. And we have to stand up and make sure that our funding is not a funding of benevolencia, right?
Right.
It is a question of we deserve it because we provide a product for humanity. Unless this philosophy changes from benevolencia to the right of being supported, the arts will suffer more.
So this inability for a society often not to recognize the value that arts brings to its community is something that has to be changed. And from what I understand, now the narrative has to be changed. We artists have to be more powerful, strong, not to beg for money, not to beg for help, but to make people understand, the community understand that we are providing a service, a product that has intrinsic value, is a concrete value. There is a return of an investment in that concert that you go to at the Tobin Center, where you have spend an evening with 1,800 people, and then as a community come together. And with that, also the fact that they can sell drinks, there is parking that goes there that provides work for so many other people, in addition to the musicians themselves. So I think that one of the things that I hear, just to finish up our conversation, is that there is a way forward. And that is a lot about our abilities as artists to become the leaders.
Exactly.
And make our point.
That we should not be at the sidelines. Right. And we should not be heard as consultants. We should, but that requires one other thing.
Well,
and that is, I think that now we have to look within ourselves and our flexibility and our creativeness. So go on as before is not a solution.
No.
That will not be a solution. And let's not talk about how we present concerts in the future of people, you know, with distance. That is a technical problem. We have to find solutions with, and everybody can be creative. I talked to you about sterilizing concert halls or whatever. There will be solutions, and hopefully, but I think it is. I'm not far more interested in the long distance future than just the next year, frankly. And we should just not dream that if we survive a certain period of time, everything will be fine. And then we go back to normal. I don't want to go back to normal because normal was not good.
Right.
I have experienced the normal and it was already facing a collapse. You see it, what's happening in the business world. Retail that has not adapted to the modern world is suffering. And of course, COVID-19 just accelerates it. It speeds it up. Those who are not prepared are hitting the wall much faster. The arts are in the same situation. We were already struggling. COVID will accelerate it, the effects of it. But we should not let that happen by giving new models that will make us stable. But these new models cannot be based on how do we present a concept. And I have been in so many discussions. A concept is a thing that has a given setup, no matter what you want to do. It doesn't matter where you put it on. It is a stage, people perform, and it's an audience seated. Whether it's around, on top of each other, mingled, or what, it doesn't really matter. The concept will always stay the same. The theater has been invented in Greek. In the Greek tragedy, and it actually has never changed for thousands of years because this is the fundamental rule of it. But the way we organize our work needs to change. And the way we place ourselves in society needs to change. The funding models need to change. The funding model needs to change dramatically. Maybe we need to change how we approach our audiences. But please, and I see it now happening for next seasons and in many, many occasions. People now think, oh, we have to plan very conservatively. We have to play now only Beethoven 5 and Pop's concert and movie concerts. Let's not do anything complex and intellectual. I think that's the wrong approach. I think we need to actually, people after this have watched so many ridiculous sitcoms and low-life stuff that they're hungry for intellectual content. So please don't talk down to your audience. Come up with very challenging things. So that is content. We need to really keep it up. Second is the funding model doesn't work. That doesn't mean just filling holes here and there will solve the problem. The funding model needs to change. And one part of it is ticket. Why on earth is it still that, do we still cling on the idea that 30% of our budget, in some cases 40%, comes from the ticket buyer? Nowhere in the world that's the case. You go to the biggest institutions that are sold out every night, whether it's in Vienna or Berlin, it is not more than 15%. Some festivals, maybe because you sell ticket prices for $500, but that should not be the daily life. So please rethink that model. You rethink it now. It doesn't work. It won't be working in the future. We need to rethink it. Endowments are a great thing, but it takes a lot of money for a fluctuated revenue stream. And when the stock market crashes, you suffer from that. Hiring people and giving them a contract is an obligation. A contract is a contract. You hire people, you sign a contract. You cannot gamble with their lives by not having stable funding on a constant basis. That's what we are doing, which is to a certain degree slightly criminal, you know. But that's what arts organization is struggling all the time with, you know. So we need to make sure that funding for payroll needs to be stabilized. And I don't see another way than including everybody in the city to participate in it. And now you can think about the little extra, the cream on the pie. That needs private funding, special interests and specific targets and all of that. But the core needs to be stabilized. Otherwise, tell me the difference between a school teacher, high school teacher, university professor, and a symphony musician. Our role in the society is very, very similar. Very similar. What we provide to the society is very, very similar too. But the symphony musician is a person that his daily income depends on factors that are out of control. And right now, totally out of control. It needs to change. And we need to go for it. We need to become more flexible. I have to say there's one thing where we limit ourselves on a constant basis. We plan years in ahead. We have schedules that are planned way in advance, and we are very unflexible when last minute changes are required. That needs to change, and we need to adapt quickly to situational changes. And that is within our organizations where we need to be more flexible. I think flexibility is the key. Creativeness is a key. Maybe recording, whether it's film music or television music, needs to be something that we integrate in what we are doing also on a daily basis. That for some reason is not possible. We don't go into that. But all of that needs to be rethought with no taboo. So it's a give and take. It's a discussion of give and take. But frankly, we need to not be on the sideline. And also what's dangerous is when it comes to the arts, the only organizations that are really heard are organized groups that present an interest of a larger body. And that's usually unionized organizations because they are just more powerful and have more people. Very important, a very important thing. But I think, where is the lobby for the actor, the dancer, the individual dancer, the individual violinist who actually sells the soloist who sells actually a bulk of our tickets because it's a big name? These people have actually, in all of this, conductors. I don't want to say it, but also us have no say so far. I think that is dangerous. It is not okay, because those people probably know more of it because they travel also and don't see just the microcosm of our society here in San Antonio.
Well, there's a lot that we can do at this point, especially now starting to talk about this more openly. Is something that I'm discovering from artists from all over the world, and it's creating some more awareness. And I think that we can. I agree with you. We cannot go back to the old normal because that wasn't working. So yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I would say.
Can I say one last thing?
Absolutely, yes.
Just as an example, the San Antonio Symphony was founded in 1939. And people came together in 1939, in the summer of 1939, on June 12, 1939, the first concert of the San Antonio Symphony happened. You know, and everybody knows what happened in 1939. You would think somebody who started a project like that at that moment in time was doomed to fail. Because we know what was following, right?
Right.
I mean, Italy was already a mess and Germany was a mess. We both know that. And that this war was coming was written on every single wall, you know? And despite all of this, people found it very necessary to form a symphony orchestra here in South Texas, in a city that was much smaller at that time than it is now. They put all the money together and all city leaders came together to support this. And within a season or so, not even, within half a year, the San Antonio Symphony became actually one of the very generously funded orchestras in the country that actually could compete with a lot of big East Coast institutions. And famous artists like Joshua Heifetz and Percy Granger came to San Antonio on a regular basis. And they had hefty fees, I tell you that. They were expensive at the time. But the value of that was totally recognized, and people didn't make money at the time either. I mean, that was just after the Depression, the war came, so people had no money to spare, really. But the little they had left, also the rich people, they invested into the arts because they realized this is a moment that challenges humanity in the ground fundamental things that hold us as humankind together. The arts are the essential way to survive struggle and to keep moving forward to a better society. People in 1939 knew that. Now we are fine, despite the turmoil right now, we are in a much better economic situation, much stronger economic situation. And yet the first thing that we do is demolish what those people under enormous sacrifice have put together and actually developed. The interesting thing is the curve of the budget of the San Antonio Symphony from 1939 to 1935 went like this. So don't tell me we have no money and people suffer, and yes, but it's not about the money really. It's about, do you see it as an essential part of our life, or do you think it's just an accessory? I think that's what defines humanity. The art defines humanity. People don't survive and their bones will be gone, but the pyramids in Egypt are still strong standing witnesses of a great society.
So the arts are a fundamental right for human beings.
Oh, it's a fundamental right. And actually, it's also the freedom of speech. It's the freedom of speech through art.
Right.
So we don't want to be silenced here.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. I really appreciate
You're very, very welcome. Sorry, I talk a lot, but I would go even further to a certain degree. I think I'm still keeping it modest. And if you turn it off, I want to tell you, if you turn the recording off, I want to tell you something.